In general terms, an IP address is a unique address that identifies a device on the Internet or a local network. IP technology, which stands for Internet Protocol, enables the exchange of information between devices on a network. IP addresses contain location information, allowing devices to be recognized and accessible. In addition, the technology we call the Internet needs to distinguish between computers, routers, and websites. IP addresses do this distinguishing, and they play a very important role in how the Internet works. There are two different types of IP. These are IPv4, IP version 4, and IPv6, IP version 6. IPv4. IPv4 addresses consist of 4 octets. These octets are made up of numbers with a dot between the octets, like 192.168.1.38. IPv4 stores an 8-bit field, i.e. 1 byte, for each octet. When we look at the general structure of IPv4, we see that it consists of 32 bits in total, i.e. 4 bytes. The values that an IPv4 address can take are between 0 and 255. So, based on the structure of 192.168.1.38, an IP address can take values between 0.0.0.0 and 255.255.255.255. You can visualize the IP structure by looking at the image on the screen. Most of the Internet uses the IPv4 addressing scheme. We mentioned above that IPv4 consists of 32 bits, which means 2 to the power of 32 equals 4.3 billion devices. So 4.3 billion devices can be addressed with IPv4. Update note: in 2022, a friend of ours asked exactly at this point why 2 over. We wanted to explain this briefly. In the blog Number Systems Part 1, we talked about the concepts of 0 and 1. At this point, each bit consists of 2 cells, and each cell either takes the value 1 or 0. In this case, if we are talking about a 32-bit structure, we can find the coverage area with the expressions 0 and 1, that is, number of bits over 2 cells, 2 to the power of 32. IPv6. IPv6 is the latest version of the Internet Protocol. No matter how much IPv4 is used now, we will have to switch to IPv6 technology after a while. The 4.3 billion devices I just mentioned may seem like a lot, but there is a danger of running out. IPv6 consists of 8 octets. Each octet contains 16 bits, and IPv6 has 128 bits in total. This means that 2 to the power of 128 can cover as many devices as you see on the screen. You can see what IPv6 looks like in the image on the screen. Internet Protocol, IP, like the languages we know and speak, is a technological language. If we consider that every language has certain rules and standards, we can understand that IP addresses also have certain standards. So IPs communicate using certain standard rules to transmit information. If we make a complete definition about this subject, we can say the following: an IP address is a unique collection of numbers using the TCP/IP standard that allows devices on a network to recognize each other, communicate, and exchange data. So when we connect to the Internet, how do we actually pass through? As you can see in the image, we have 3 devices. Let's go through the phone. The router is a device that already has Internet. Other devices can also go online by connecting to a device that has Internet. So the phone makes a request to the router to connect. The router then makes a request to the Internet for this device to connect. The router receives the response packet from the Internet and forwards it to the phone. The phone is then connected to the Internet. We should not only think of this as connecting to the Internet. The same thing happens if a device wants to go to Google.com, for example. In the first bullet point we made a sentence like the device first connects to a network connected to the Internet. You can think of it like this: your phone connects to a modem that already has Internet, and as a result of the connection, The modem authorizes your device to access the Internet. As a result, a unique IP address is assigned to the phone by the router, i.e. ISP, Internet Service Provider. What you do on the Internet, your traffic, passes through the ISP, and the ISP routes it back to you using your IP address. That is, it shows you the results of your actions, such as wanting to go to google.com and being able to access it. The IP addresses of routers are usually 192.168.1.1 or 192.168.0.1. Notice that the IP address of the router ends with a 1. This is necessary to identify what the first device is. Therefore, we can infer that the number at the end of the IP address identifies the number of the device. We see that the end of the IP address of the phone is 21. This means that the phone is the 21st device on the network. This means that the devices are able to access the Internet through the first device, router. What proves this is the IP addresses of the devices. Notice that the IP addresses of the phone, laptop, and desktop computers also start with 192.168.0. This means that they are receiving Internet from the router. Finding your IP address is easy. You can do a Google search for "what is my IP?" Connect two different devices to the same network and search "what's my IP?" You will understand more clearly what I am saying in the above article. IP addresses are divided into 4 groups. 1. Public IP addresses. Your entire network is assigned a primary IP address. This IP address format assigns a unique IP address to each connected device. Public IP is the IP assigned to your router by your ISP. They are global addresses assigned to access the Internet. If your router or computer has a public IP, it means that you can reach them from anywhere on the global network. Conversely, when you access a website on the Internet, the server uses the public IP address of your device. All servers and sites on the Internet use public IP, like Cloudflare.com or 1.1.1.1, Cloudflare DNS server. 2. Private IP addresses. Devices within a network create an IP address between them. This is called private IP. Devices within this network are not assigned the same IP address because these IP addresses are identifiers used to distinguish devices on the network from each other. Private IP addresses are not directly visible from the Internet. If you remember, the modem had a main IP address and the devices received IP addresses derived from that IP address. Private IP addresses are seen as more secure because public IP addresses are not visible. This is the type of IP address that should not be shared with anyone and is vulnerable to attacks if shared. 3. Static IP addresses. As the name suggests, they are IP addresses that are static, i.e. non-variable, not unchanging. It refers to the IP address that we do not share with other Internet users, but is unique to us. For security reasons, it is recommended to be used especially in local or office networks. It is more suitable for networks with fewer devices. You can contact your ISP to purchase it. 4. Dynamic IP addresses. Here, you are assigned a new IP address each time you connect to the Internet. When you disconnect from the Internet, the IP address assigned to you is assigned to another device. Therefore, it is inconvenient to use dynamic IP in corporate networks. Since IP addresses vary, it can be difficult to determine which IP address belongs to which device in case of a problem. IP addresses are divided into class structures. While there are 3 basic classes, there are 5 classes in total. Let's get to know them briefly. Class A IP addresses. IP addresses with the first octet between 1 and 126 are known as Class A IP addresses. In Class A IP addresses, the last octet, the octet that determines how many devices the device is between 1 and 254. To give an example, The range of IP addresses we can use on the network with an IP address of 15.0.0.0 will be 10.0.0.1 to 10.255.255.254. You can think of other classes with the same logic. Class B IP addresses. IP addresses with the first octet between 128 and 191 are known as Class B IP addresses. Class C IP addresses. IP addresses with the first octet between 192 and 223 are known as Class C IP addresses. If you look carefully at the table, you can see that there is no 127 between Class A and Class B. This is because of reserved IP addresses. These IP addresses are reserved for the development of the Internet or for use in the unknown future. These special IP addresses are used to communicate on the bigger and wider Internet. The most famous reserved IP address is 127.0.0.1. This address is called a loopback address and is used to test a network adapter or integrated chip. No traffic can flow to this address over the local network or the public Internet. 127.0.0.0 to 127.255.255.255 is reserved, and if you access these IP addresses over the Internet, you will not see anything. IP addresses can be changed. The main purpose of people who want to do this is to prevent the ISP from seeing the traffic. They want to be anonymous. There are several ways to change IP addresses, but the most common ones are as follows. Resetting the modem or router. After this reset, you will be assigned a new IP address. Using a VPN, its main purpose is to hide IP. Telling your ISP that you want to change your IP address. The reason why your IP address changes when you move, for example, when you move to another city, is that the Internet you use when you are out of town has a different ISP. When you connect to a new network, your IP address will also change temporarily. So it is not your location that matters, but the IP assigned by the ISP you use. Don't forget to visit our blog website and check out our Discord and Telegram channels. The relevant links will be in the description.